on time most of the time.
Surprise, surprise.
Expecting an unexpected. What's up, family? This is Bliss on the Spot. We got Rico Scott, Coco, Sandy
Yes,
Paradise
sir.
Lady, Carolyn Victorian, aka Lady and Brown. Special guest, Mr. Alan King,
Hey, hey.
Chicago's finest,
Yeah.
Yes,
What's
the
yes.
up,
chosen
Hi,
everybody?
few.
welcome,
Welcome,
welcome.
welcome.
I am happy to be here. Good to see you all.
It's
Good to
good.
see
It's good to
you.
have you
Likewise.
here. Yeah. So, Alan, we're gonna just jump right into this. Just tell us about yourself, like the history of you.
Sure. I won't start at birth, but um, born and raised in Chicago, south side of Chicago. Still repping the White Sox, as you can see. And actually started DJing, well, if you can call it DJing, in 1977. So my first party was actually my eighth grade graduation party. Was the first time that
Nice.
I ever like played music for people, and I don't think I had two turntables or a mixer or anything like that. But it was my party, so I was gonna play the music, and that night I just fell in love with playing music for people, and just seeing the reactions that people had to. I'm like, man, if they like this record, wait till I put this 45 on. They really go, they really go,
45.
they really go snap off of that. So I kind of got the bug in '77, and immediately, tried to figure out what I needed to do to be a DJ, and have my dad invest in a couple turntables for me and a real cheap mixer. And anyway, so I started, DJing a lot of school parties, neighborhood parties, etc. Starting 77, 78, and then kind of, I wouldn't say we were rivals, but kind of ran into Wayne Williams and Jesse Saunders, who had the crew, the Chosen Few, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Mhm.
But so Wayne and Jesse were kind of DJing some of the parties, and I was doing some of the parties in the same circle. So I think it was around 1980 that Wayne asked me to join the crew, and at the time there were five of us: um, Wayne Williams, Jesse Saunders, myself, Tony Hatchett, and then a little bit later Andre Hatchett. So for 20 plus years, the Chosen Few consisted of five of us, and then in recent years we've added, of course, Terry Hunter and Mike Dunn, to round out the crew. But
Mhm.
anyway, born and raised in Chicago, that was sort of the DJ side. I kind of took a break from it, and when I went to law school, I DJ through college, and then
Mm.
went to law school and kind of gave it up for a minute. But I always knew, that was my first love, and it was starting to call me back over the years. So a lot of people call me now lawyer by day, DJ by night.
Mhm.
So that's kind of, hey, Renee, I'm seeing the comments now. That's cool.
Nice.
Popping. Yeah, I hope you feel better, Renee. By the way. So anyway, yeah. So I'm a lawyer, practice law, and you know what I would tell most people is I'm really a DJ that like practices law in between DJ gigs. So
Nice.
Alan, what type of law do you practice?
I was
yeah,
just gonna ask that.
yeah,
I
I
can
do.
answer that.
Oh yeah. Well,
Labor,
yeah.
employment.
Yes, you're absolutely
Mhm.
right. So I do mostly employment law, a lot of employment litigation, so discrimination, sexual harassment, stuff like that. Um, and I keep telling Terry Hunter and Wayne Williams that I am not an entertainment lawyer, but they won't listen to me.
That's
So
right. Free advice. Free advice.
there
Oh my
you go.
God.
There you go, Carolyn. That's exactly. And I know just enough to not get them and myself in any trouble.
Right.
But so I tinker with it, entertainment law only because these guys have kind of forced me to. But anyway, yeah, it's mostly like labor and employment stuff. So yeah, I'm sitting at my lawyer station here. I didn't even go down to the DJ room. So
Oh.
just finishing up working here at home. But anyway.
Yeah, Alan, it's like going to the dentist for a broken arm. You mentioned like the
Right,
entertainment law,
right.
right? Law is law, but there's different languages, right?
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
as all lawyers know, I mean, we all have family members and friends that, people that think, well, if you're a lawyer, you know something about everything. So I get calls about criminal law and bankruptcy, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't know any more than you know about most of that stuff. We learn a little bit here and there in law school, but if that's not your practice area, you don't really know much more than
Mhm.
the average person, to be honest. But so
Nice.
anyway,
What made you get into law?
um, that's a good question. Actually, my father was a lawyer. I say that, but I'm not sure that had anything to do with me doing it. So I wasn't one of those people who was like all my life, oh, I know what I want to do. I'm gonna be a lawyer, and
Mhm.
not at all. To be honest, I was getting toward the end of college, and I'm like, man, I'm not sure what I want to do. And then I thought, law school, I could put this off for 3 more years while I think about it and go to law school. So, obviously, I think the fact that my father was a lawyer and being around it has some influence, but it wasn't necessarily a lifelong plan. I just, didn't necessarily have anything else that I was really passionate about other than music.
Yeah.
So
How did you
here
fall
we
into
are.
that particular area of law?
Um, it's a similar area to what my father did, actually. But again, I'm not sure that was the influence that much. I took some courses around like employment discrimination and labor courses in law school. I just liked them. I think I liked the professors that I have. And, next thing you know, I just kind of fell into it. So not any of this was, all that planned out, to be honest. But I like the area because you're dealing with people's lives and real situations, and
Mhm.
I couldn't be a lawyer that just like reads the tax code all day or something so something boring like that. So, and there's a lot of those kind of folks, lawyers who
Mhm.
never ever go to court, haven't practiced 30 years and never seen the inside of a courtroom. It's just different things that you can do. But
Mhm.
so my area is interesting, at least. It's so
Alan, I imagine like with the COVID and everything,
yeah,
you're probably high in demand because there's
yeah,
different regulations. Certain HR policies have to be rewritten to match what's going on with,
yeah. No, you're
today.
exactly right, Will. Yeah, I mean, our area has been super busy when a lot of other areas have been down for the reasons you said, and like right now, like lots of employers are trying to deal with you know, bringing people back to physical work locations. Can we require that they get vaccinated? Can we ask about COVID questions? There's you know
Wow.
there's all
Mhm.
there's all sorts of stuff
Yeah.
that employers are dealing with. So I do a lot of that kind of counseling employers on issues like that. But yeah, you're
Yeah.
right on the money. Mm.
Like, workers' rights. Can a coworker ask me, did I get vaccinated? Do I gotta card them? Like I can
Yeah,
imagine like all that
yeah,
happening at the
yeah.
workplace.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
there. So But
So
I'm but, but
so
I'm not gonna but I'm not gonna do a law seminar tonight. So
I hear you. So in 1977, what was the South Side of Chicago like? Because when I think of Chicago, I think of the Windy City. I think of Pizzeria Uno's, Soul Train, all that. So
uh,
like,
I
so
love it.
what was it like?
It was cool, man. It's I love Chicago. I mean, I think especially these days it gets a bad rap. I mean, we do have a lot of gun violence, and that's unfortunate. But if you listen to the news, you think like you can't even go outside without like gunfire, and
Mhm.
it's not like that at all. So you know, musically at the time, it's funny. One of my first not this doesn't necessarily answer the question, but one of my first exposures to what would become disco music and dance music. There was a little bar in my neighborhood called the Jeffrey Pub. And I'm talking, this was before I even started DJing. So this is probably 75, 76. And I just used to walk around the neighborhood and I would hear this amazing music coming out of the Jeffrey Pub. And it was an all gay club. I don't know that I really understood what that meant at the time, but let's just say it was a really flamboyant
Wow.
place in terms of the people that was around it and outside of it. But I was drawn to that so much, just that scene and that music at 11, 12, 13 years old. So that was a big part of it. But when we started DJing, most of us were starting playing a lot of just regular R&B, the Harold Melvin type stuff, danceable R&B. Um, and that was more or less what the situation was when we started. At a certain point in the late 70s, I don't remember the exact year, when disco really became something. Chicago had actually an all disco FM radio station, which was unusual at the time anyway, 24/7 disco. And they had kind of taken over for a rock station, which in part led to this whole disco demolition thing that some of you all may have heard about it, White Sox Park in Chicago. But that's a
I
whole.
was waiting for you to get to that. I was waiting
Yeah.
for you to
Oh,
get to
oh yeah, we can talk about that for sure.
that.
But
It's like,
so
okay,
yeah,
is he gonna?
yeah. So there,
Hmm.
yeah. So there
I
was.
was there.
Were you there? Oh, okay. All
I
right.
was living and in New York, but I was witnessing it in Chicago, and I was wondering if you was gonna speak on it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll get to that, and it does tie into. So the radio station was called Disco DAI. So 77-ish, 78. I can't remember the exact year. There was this 24/7 disco station, and that helped me sort of get deeper into the music, and it was more commercial disco than. So for a while there, you had in Chicago, the scene was kind of disco DAI, kind of the more commercial disco. Then you had the Warehouse, of course, with Frankie Knuckles, which opened in '77, and then a little bit later, the Music Box with Ron Hardy. But yeah, Frankie's Club was started pretty much exclusively gay, and came more integrated and mixed over the years. But there was a period of time where you sort of had the Disco DAI, and then later on a group called the Hot Mix Five, that were on Chicago radio, and then you had sort of the gay scene, and then you had, and I would say that the biggest contribution that historically that we made in terms of the chosen few DJs, kind of when the Warehouse was going and there was more commercial stuff on radio. We were kind of the crew that introduced what was going on at the Warehouse, that kind of music, more underground stuff to like straight high school kids. So, we were having loft parties that started at midnight and all night for, high school kids. It kind of the scene that was going on for older, because some of us, were going to the Warehouse, and we kind of, we did other things too, but I wouldn't say recreate that scene, but I think a lot of people in Chicago learned that through chosen few DJs, places we were playing when we were all in high school. So we kind of introduced the whole sort of loft party, underground party thing in Chicago to kind of the straight high school kids that weren't otherwise aware of it. So, um, and yeah, and we can get to disco demolitions.
Ay, ay, ay.
So yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
so as I mentioned, Disco DAI kind of took over this station, which was a sort of a white rock station, and one of the DJs on there named Steve Dahl got pissed off, and anyway, started this whole anti-disco movement and had this ridiculous promotion to like bring all your disco records to White Sox Park, and there's a doubleheader that day. And between games, we're gonna blow up all these disco records. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember it well. And the funny thing is that last year or recently, last couple of years, I can't remember, the White Sox were doing a 40-year like commemoration of Disco Demolition Night, and we're like, why are you like, honoring this ridiculous episode? And so actually, I got involved. Wayne Williams got involved in talking to the White Sox and trying to explain to, because you got these young like executives, marketing people at the White Sox who don't really get it, and what they don't get was Disco Demolition was really a not just an anti-disco music thing. It was an anti-black. It was anti-gay. It was anti. It was.
It was negative.
Yeah, it was a protest of everything surrounding
Wow.
dance music, culture, and race. And I'm like, this is not something you should be celebrating 40 years later.
Mm-mm.
So
Nope.
unfortunately, they went ahead with it, but through our sort of negotiations with them, they curtailed it in a number of ways, and they limited it. So I mean, we were happy with that, but it was funny that we sort of had a chance to negotiate with the White Sox 40 years later about whether they celebrate this event or
Nice.
not. So yeah.
Yeah, Alan, I wonder, like in that bash of records that they blew up, was Rolling Stone missing you in there?
I
It's
know.
here it is. It's a rock group that did a disco song.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Yeah. Right. Well, as we all know, I mean, disco, dance music, house music, it can be very broad, and there were
yeah,
there were there were
Yeah.
white there were white groups making those records, and
Mhm.
so
Mm-hmm.
the average folks that were like deaf to disco probably didn't understand that, and
right.
and so I'm sure there was Rolling Stone stuff in there. There might have been Pink Floyd. I mean, we played a lot
Bee
of
Gees.
Doobie Brothers.
yeah yeah
Doobie Brothers.
Doobie.
yeah
Oh yeah,
yeah, all that stuff. And,
Doobie
and
Brothers had to be in there. It was a bunch of people in
right,
there.
Wild Cherry.
Even Elton
sure,
John.
sure, oh yeah. And on the flip side of that, I'm sure there was a lot of records in there that weren't even disco records. They were just black records.
Exactly.
They were just
Yeah,
R&B. They were black records, and so
Well, that was an offense to Motown.
yeah, yeah. So there's no question though that those of us who were into the scene at the time recognized that disco demolition thing was about way more than music. It was really about black, Latino, gay people. It was trying to
Suppression.
burn that whole scene is what it
Yeah,
really was.
suppression. Suppression.
Absolutely.
so Alan, so like I always felt like New York City and Chicago always had the ties together.
Sure.
With the music that's being transported back and forth.
Yeah.
Frankie Knuckles, who's from New York,
Yeah.
goes into Chicago. Like, how well did Chicago receive Frankie Knuckles, being that he was from New York
Yeah.
when he first came on?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't start going to the warehouse and experiencing Frankie until a couple of years after it opened. But the stories are, and I've talked to him about this later on, and it wasn't an overnight success. So the story, as you may know, Robert Williams, who's another New Yorker, um, transplanted to Chicago and was having parties that he was already calling the warehouse, although they were different locations. And I know he made his pitch to Larry Levan to try to get Larry to move to Chicago, of course. And Larry's like, Chicago? Not happening. So Larry had the garage jumping off, and that wasn't going to happen. So and I'm sure you all know all of this stuff. Larry and Frankie were running buddies as kids, and all of that. So that was really how Frankie got there. But what they say is, I mean, it was not an overnight success, and people weren't necessarily feeling Frankie immediately.
Really?
but that certainly changed, and you know, it's we
No, they wasn't feeling Frankie. They wasn't feeling the club. They wasn't feeling the location.
right,
None of that.
right,
And he kept
right,
coming back home, distressed, and then go back with more stuff to try to change it.
right.
And it was like a back and forth thing. So eventually, people
Yeah,
start to just let it go.
yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. Yeah. By the time I started going, I mean, it was on 100,
Yeah.
and you know,
Hmm.
it was what it was, but
Yeah.
What year
yeah.
was that when you started going?
Um, 80, I think. So you had to be, it was non-alcohol, although, you know, they were famous for the spike punch and all of that stuff. But you were supposed to be 18 to go to the
Mhm.
warehouse, and you know, everybody in Chicago and their mama has a story about how they had a fake ID when they were 8 years old
Mhm.
and went to the warehouse, which is BS on most of them. So I think I actually waited until I was 18 or close to it. So it was 80 or 81. So I think it closed in 83. But I mean, from the first moment I went, you know, it like blew me away, changed my life. I mean, it was like, you know, I at that point I had been DJing for years, and we were pretty popular as a crew and had done some special things, but just the sound, the lighting, the environment, I had never seen anything quite like that. And you know, I always tell people, I mean, when I went to the warehouse, it's like that's when I learned what a party was supposed to look like, sound like, feel like, you know, all of those things.
B.
Really happened for me at the warehouse.
When so as far as Chicago getting its music, where did you get your music from?
You know what? Mostly in Chicago. I mean, there were some good record stores in Chicago. There was a store called Sounds Good early on in the late '70s, and I always tell people this was the first record store I ever went to that had like a disco section, you know,
Yeah.
labeled disco. Like, oh, let me check this out. So this is, you know, mid to late '70s, and then you know there were a couple more influential stores. One called Imports, etc., that was open for a long time and kind of famous now in retrospect that a lot of DJs and producers had worked at Imports, like Chip E and Derek Carter worked at Imports,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah. So and then the other one would be Gramophone, which is on the north side of Chicago. So you know, we were getting a lot of stuff there, but you know, I've been ordering music from New York forever, like since I was a kid, and I'm trying to remember the main Vinyl Mania. You all remember Vinyl Mania?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I used to order a lot of records from Vinyl Mania.
Live there.
Did
Who
you?
didn't?
Live
Yeah.
We
there.
lived there.
Yeah,
Yes, we did.
That was
I,
the first place. That was the first place you went to after you left the garage,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and
yeah,
that was every week.
yeah. I mean, since I
It
was
was like it was
like
like
yeah,
connected like a umbilical cord to the garage.
is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I hear, and I can't remember who turned me on to it, but like since I was a kid, like anything I couldn't find in Chicago, I was Vinyl Mania, and
Nice.
I was ordering records from them forever.
Did you not
So
Yeah.
have a record pool in Chicago?
yeah, we did. Yeah, I don't know. I always felt like there was more garbage in that pool than than good stuff, but
Garbage pool.
yeah, but you know,
Mhm.
that's always the way. I mean, I think all of us are diggers. You know,
Mhm.
we're gonna dig through a lot of garbage to find good music. You know, whether it's
On the gold, looking for the gold.
looking for
You know,
gold.
one question I wanted to ask you before you
Yeah.
left here today, because I was always curious to this and I never had a source.
Hmm.
What other clubs was happening in Chicago outside of the warehouse? Only club ever I ever heard represented Chicago was the warehouse. And I know y'all had to have more than just one watering hole.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a club called the Loft, and on Michigan Avenue, and that was really one of the main. When I talked about the chosen few, kind of introducing this music to high school kids, a lot of those parties were at the Loft. And I remember I actually had a little bit of a run-in with David Mancuso many years later. On the Deep House page website,
I remember that.
Yeah, you remember? Deep House page. So I was talking about the Loft. I was talking about the Loft in Chicago. I think David got his feathers ruffled a little bit. We had a conversation outside of it, but it's like okay, nobody was. And I think what he couldn't believe was that like we didn't name our club the Loft after his loft. And we were like 14-year-old kids. None of us ever heard of the Loft in New York. It was just a loft space where we were having a party, and we called it the Loft. But so anyway, so there was a Loft. There was a club called Sours. Depending on who you talk to, they pronounce it correctly or incorrectly. Sours or Sawyers. A club called First Impressions. The Playground. There was a lot of spots, and it's funny that you say that because I again later on I had conversations with Frankie where, like when the warehouse was going crazy, he didn't even know there were these other spots in Chicago. I think him and his crowd and the warehouse, loyalists just like didn't even have a sense of what was going outside of that immediate circle. So I had to tell him about a lot.
That's how it came back to us. That's how it came back to us in New York. So we would be like, okay, well, you go to Chicago, is the warehouse the only place it can't be the only place.
Right. No, and there were other gay clubs too. That the Den one. There were others. Yeah. So I think people were just kind of in their own world around the warehouse and kind of isolated. And because Frankie wasn't from the city and Robert wasn't from the city, they're not going to be as familiar with the nooks and crannies.
The rest of the club.
So Alan, what was the difference between Ron Hardy's crowd and Frankie Knuckles' crowd?
You know what? I'm not a good person to answer that because again, people always lie and say they did this and did that, and I tell people honestly, I heard Ron Hardy play one time in my life because when the music box was really rolling, I was away in college or I was away at law school. It was kind of during those years, but so I heard Ron Hardy play one time live. And the funny thing is, all I could think about was like, who is this dude who thinks he's Frankie Knuckles?
Like, oh snap!
that was like my only impression of him. Like he was playing a lot of the same stuff, and obviously I learned later about him and his legacy, and have no doubt that he was an amazing DJ. Most people say the legend of Ron is that he was played a little more grittier than Frankie, and there was a lot of drug influence, so he played more up tempo, played a little harder. I think where Frankie was more of a soulful cat, but obviously for a lot of people in Chicago, the music box was it. Ron Hardy is their godfather of house music. But it's like the Cubs and the White Sox. Like you were a Frankie guy or you were a Ron guy. I was always a Frankie guy. So, for sure.
I don't think we really had that type of situation like in New York City, right? Like there were rivalries against DJs.
And they weren't rivals, and they were cool. So they always had a good relationship, as I understand.
It was the people.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of timing of kind of when you came along and when you got into this. There's definitely a Frankie camp and a Ron camp. If you want to ask like who's the godfather, who influenced me the most, there's a Frankie camp. and there's a Ronnie camp. So
Yeah. So all right. So now the warehouse is happening. You got the power plant. Also someone mentioned Music Box. Now Hot Mix 5. Like I've heard a lot of great stories about Hot Mix 5. No comparison between Hot Mix 5 and Chosen Few. I mean, you both were kind of like a organization, but in what way did Hot Mix 5 inspire you?
I honestly don't know that I can say they inspired me, but they definitely inspired a lot of people, and they inspired the city. I mean, the reality was, even the clubs that were popping, like the Warehouse or the Loft or whatever, you're still talking about maybe a couple hundred people on the best night, that you're playing to. And the Hot Mix 5 originally were hired by WBMX, and I'd only be guessing about the year, but it was a major Black, FM radio station with huge reach. So those guys had a lot of influence, and a lot of people got their first exposure to house music through the Hot Mix 5. So the original crew, if I can remember all, of course, was originally Farley Funkin' Keith, who later became Farley Jackmaster Funk, Ralphie Rosario, Mickey Oliver, Scott Sills, and I'm missing one person, and I can picture him. Oh, Kenny Jason. So anyway, So there were different iterations over the years of the 5, and there's one legendary story, like Frankie was supposed to be part of it, and he like missed a meeting or something, and I don't know if that's the case, but the fact that the radio station was so big, I mean, they had a lot of influence. So a lot of people. Interestingly, I would say the Latino community in particular, and maybe it was only because there weren't other underground spots happening so much in that community, that most house heads in Chicago that are Latino, if you ask them how do they get involved and when, and it's almost always going to be the Hot Mix 5. I mean, that was usually their first exposure. So it was great. I mean, it was great to hear our music on a mainstream station, but we love those cats, and I'm super close friends with all of them. But we had sort of they're like playing more, I wouldn't say commercial, but more above ground stuff, and some of us were more the underground stuff at the same time. So, but love those cats, and no one can deny the impact that they had in Chicago, because that station was reach. The reach was unbelievable. So,
Ricoh,
since you mentioned the house underground, one of the questions that I've lived with for the past, I'll say 40 years, since the 70s, the late 70s, or I'll say the early 80s. And people ask me today, because I was there then, and I don't even know the answer to this. But when was the first time you heard our music called house? Who titled it that?
We're about to set it off now.
Exactly, because people asked me that, and I was like, well, we weren't house music. You asked me about music, underground, white label music. Sure. We only had underground music.
Sure.
Later years, people was like, well, did house start No, we didn't have house. We didn't even have house clubs. We was underground. Garage, everything was underground. Then somebody said, well, Frankie brought the name back from Chicago. And I never got a chance to ask him. As many times we crossed paths, I never got the chance to ask him. So now we got you here. How did that name come to be?
I think everyone wants to hear too.
Well,
Alan.
There's as many versions of this as there are people in Chicago. But here's what I think is the truth. I mean, from my experience, and I always tell people that there was a term or an expression, house music and house, before there was an actual genre of music called house music. And the way the term started, to my experience, and this is 82, 83, was folks that were going to the warehouse and sort of in that warehouse scene and culture. We started calling the kind of music that Frankie was playing at the warehouse house, house short for warehouse. I mean that's when I first ever heard anybody saying house or house music. It was kind of like they play down at the house. So it really was built up around Frankie in the warehouse. But then I think what historians would tell you, that there isn't an official, because really Frankie was playing disco, he was playing R&B,
everything,
he was playing everything. So
every genre.
Yeah, so there wasn't a house music genre of music, I think, until
Thank you.
So there's that term, and that's the origin of that term, in my opinion.
Right.
And then a couple years later, and then you can really get into fights about who had the first house music record.
House record.
But I think why Chicago claims to be the birthplace. I think that term did start here around the warehouse, and then arguably, there was a style of new music that people were making, very drum machine, 808
bass line.
Yeah, that I to my understanding, I think Jesse Saunders of our crew had the first record out called On and On. But Chippy, Chippy followed quickly. Steve So Curly,
House,
all that stuff followed. But so I think the distinction is that there was a phrase or a term, house music, before there was an actual genre of music that you can call house music, and I think both of those originated in Chicago, but that didn't, at the time, like you said, I mean, it was underground in New York or club music. I mean, you all were calling it club music. We
was calling it underground music.
Underground, okay.
And when people was coming from Chicago to visit the Northeast Corridor, which we consider New York, New Jersey, Philly, DC, Baltimore area, you could find underground music in underground clubs. But they would tell us we was listening to house music, and we would tell them, no, we ain't never listened to no house music. Where you get that term from?
Yeah.
So I think at that point they were talking about the term had caught fire around Frankie's warehouse, and that's
where they said it came from.
Right. So they were saying, like where they were in New York, they were hearing the same kind of stuff they were hearing from Frankie. So I'm sure they did call it house music.
And the irony of it all is Frankie came from us.
Right. Yeah, it is the irony.
But here's the thing, but I had plenty of debates with some of our peers in New York where they would say that Larry Levan did not play house music at the garage. Like they would call it club music. But
club music, we called it.
Right, club music. But you got some elites in New York City that will claim New York City made house music was the first one, and they'll go back to Boy Jarvis. They'll go back to Timmy. But I've heard it. I've heard it where people would say that and will deny that there was never house music played at the garage, which is not true because Liz Torres played there.
Right.
Master C and J played there.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So
Marshall Jefferson. I'm sure he played movies.
All of those people that you just named did shows there. I saw their shows. Yeah. But what I'm saying to you is we did not call it house music.
Right. I get it.
Even when they performed their songs, if their songs was house songs, we did not. You went to Vinyl Mania and asked for house music. They would look at you like, what the heck is that? They even had underground or white label.
That's interesting. Yeah, I figured by the time we were putting out records like Marshall Jefferson, all those early,
They was all crazy.
that you all would have been calling it house music by then, but maybe apparently not. Not even.
It's a big debate.
All of those people, when they would come to the Northeast Corridor, they would hit all of the underground clubs, which were not publicized or commercialized, and they would not come in saying their music was house music.
Gotcha.
And that's why I always had that question, because I was there, and I know when I first started buying my first albums from hearing them in the garage, there was you saw disco, R&B, and underground or white label. I never saw house.
Well,
there was no area for it. Now, once they got their 6 stores, on the same block, then you start seeing house music section.
But Alan, you know what's interesting? Like I've even had conversations with some of the representatives of the garage, and they would say they wouldn't call it disco,
right?
They would call it dancehall R&B.
Right.
So it's like it's all about how you claim the music. I mean, it's a term, you know, some people won't even call it house music, they'll call it dance music.
Sure.
But in reality, it's dance music.
We was listening to Grace Jones, Sting,
sure, absolutely.
Simply Red, and then right behind that a Teddy Pendergrass, a Colonel Abrams, and then jump over to a Cyndi Lauper. We was listening to everything.
Right.
All right. So let's
all of those people I just named are not house artists.
All right. So let's move on. So now, Alan.
Will, hang on. Before we move on, and I'm gonna get myself in trouble with Chicago people, but I have to say this because you mentioned Boy Jarvis. You know that record, Music's Got Me, by Visual, the Music's Got Me.
Right.
He's got a decent argument that that's the first house record, in my opinion. Now, it's close to when Jesse put out his record, but what we say in Chicago was house music is typified by people, producers, making their own records, using drum machines and not necessarily live musicians and all these things that we say are the elements of house music. I'm not so sure that Boyd's Visual Music's Got Me doesn't check all those boxes, but it was done in a different environment where nobody was, you guys weren't out there thinking about the word house or house music, but there's at least a decent argument that record was also one of the first, although it wasn't considered to be part of that genre at the time. So I just want to say that. So
it was just the intent, the way that the songs were made in New York versus Chicago. They were just made differently. Yeah. Just like the music that was coming out of New York and New Jersey, it's kind of made differently. I mean, more song writing base out of Jersey. You know what I'm saying? New York has the synth heavy type of vibe. So it's all, even like Detroit and Chicago, it's, as far as regional, it's like New York and New Jersey. It's just right across the river. Yeah. But then you have house music, but then Detroit has techno. It has the same 4/4 beat. You're using the same equipment. It's just the term is different.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
We all got them.
I'm not going to adopt techno as being the same. House, but,
no,
I was going to say techno.
You ain't gonna take credit for that.
No, because you know why? Because take the song "Big Fun" by in a whatever.
Yeah.
That's That
Yeah,
they
no,
call that techno.
well, if they call that techno, I call that a house record that was made by a group that was made by some people that also do techno.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know.
All right. It's like 86, Alan, and out of nowhere on the radio, I hear this dope, like heavy bass driven. It's like a mid-tempo, smooth track. And I'm like wondering what is this? It has like these real smooth chords. And then I find out that it's Mr. Fingers, Can You Feel It?
Right.
Which is on Trax Records from Chicago. But I'm hearing it on the radio. Like, what was it to me? I mean, I've heard like Chippy like this. Those songs, Adonis, and I feel like in New York, those were songs that were kind of like crossed over, not only with the garage, but a lot of freestyle was very big in New York, and they were merging those songs together. They were blending, that in. What was it like? Because when I first heard Can You Feel It by Mr. Fingers, I'm like, I want more of this. And then next thing I'm discovering Master C and J. I see nothing but red labels. That's all I see is all red. And I'm like, Chicago, this is all Chicago. Like, for New York City, that was like a big thing for us.
Yeah.
That's
that's interesting to hear that all those records were getting there and having that impact. Because they definitely were in Chicago. And there were some of the artists in Chicago that were really doing a lot of tracky stuff, but we also had, and I got to talk about Jamie Principle. And Jamie is a phenomenon all to his own, in the sense that, when Jesse and Chip and others were making really more track-driven songs that were mostly instrumental or tracks, or Jamie was writing songs and performing songs, and he had, I'm talking about, Waiting on My Angel, Your Love, different records like that, and Jamie had these records done like years before some of the guys that put out records. He just never put them out. So he worked with Frankie on some of them, and Frankie would play them from a reel to reel, and so this was before anybody was putting these records out. So he was the first sort of local Chicago cat that we were just like, wow, like who did this and how did they do this? And so he was later on before they actually got the records out, and that's the reason they, he's not considered like the first person to put out these house music records, because for whatever reason, he just didn't get his stuff together to sort of get them out there commercially. But yeah, I mean it was fire all over the city. I mean, and so many different producers that were making dope stuff. Like I said, a lot of them were more tracky, and some of them were more soulful, more song oriented. And again, some of that period, I was away in college and law school for some of that period. So I do remember like being in law school, like just tripping out. Like all my friends is like, well, I'm like, what do you mean you're going to Europe to perform your song? Like, what are you talking about? So I missed some of that explosion. But I wasn't far away for law school or college. So in fact, I used to come home from college and like drive 3 hours just to come in and go to the warehouse and stay there all night and go back to school. My parents didn't even know I was in town, but so I used to do that a lot. But
because a lot of Chicago artists were actually going into London now. Like they're getting like these major gigs.
Absolutely. So how did
that start? Like how did that connection begin?
I just, I'm not sure who was responsible for getting those records over to London and to Europe, just like New York, but obviously they were getting there. And I think the folks over there fell in love with, the sound for a while too. So, not only were they, bringing these artists over there to perform, but, you got people like Jesse and others getting like major label deals for, with Warner Brothers and other big labels. And so it was quite a phenomenon, you know, at least for that period of time. So,
yeah. So this is Bliss on the Spot. We got special guest Alan King of Chosen Few, SNL, Chicago family. Any questions you have from Mr. Alan King, please put it in the chat box. So, you know, speaking of Jamie Principle, I always wondered, like, because I always felt like Baby Wants to Ride was like a 3-in-1 song. He's talking about the warehouse, and then somebody stole my beats to like I want to get it on with you. So I'm like, I was trying to wonder like what that whole concept of Baby Wants to Ride was all about. Because whenever I played for a central set, but then I hear like a whole bunch of different things in there. Like
that's an interesting point. I'm not sure I ever figured that out. But he's a mad talented cat, and like really kind of eccentric, and you know, we're friends. I love him. But yeah, I'm not sure the meaning on all that stuff. But Steve Maxwell said, "Who's my favorite DJ?"
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I was gonna ask who your favorite remixer is.
Well, I'll answer who some of my favorite DJs are, and I'll just say, in addition to my chosen few brothers, so I don't get in any trouble. And let me get that out the way. In addition to my chosen few brothers, there's a lot of people I like. I mean, I love Morales. I love Joe Clausell. Locally in Chicago, you know, Steve, who asked that question, Steve Maxwell, I like. Torrin Edmond. There's a bunch of cats that have a really good ear for music, and I like what they're doing. But you know, I like Louis. I love Dave. I love Joe. Yeah, you know, I'm getting more familiar with my brother Will Milton every weekend, so I'm dealing with you.
Thank you, fam. Thank you.
Man, I've been hearing your name for years and years and years. So trust that. We all know who you are in Chicago.
Appreciate that.
That's been one of the crazy things of this pandemic. Like, we're getting a chance to like hear each other and like connect the faces and the names and hear each other play. I mean, that's been one of the really pleasant things that's come out of this pandemic. I mean, it's been crazy that you know, there's basically great DJs on from all over the world, like 24/7. Like, you know, and you know, we didn't have the chance to just, you know, lay up in the crib and okay, I'm just gonna dial up and watch Louis Vega for 2 hours, and then I'm gonna watch Dave Morales. Or, I mean, it's been a nice thing, and I don't think it's ever going to go away, in the sense that I think the virtual aspect is it's here to stay. You know, I think even when we like go back to the clubs, it's going to be some combination of club stuff and virtual,
like
so much
like
more.
a hybrid club scene.
Yeah,
you know,
I think so.
It's like our new way of having Winter Music Conference now, because we're all networking on this level.
That's so crazy.
It's like a real eye opener. Do you really need to go far and beyond when you can just do it right here?
I know. In fact, I was joking on my show last Saturday night. I was like, you know, I'm glad things are opening up, but like, you know, these clubs and these promoters, that they better give me some pretty good offers to leave my house on a Saturday night.
Let them know. That's right. Let them know.
Because I can just go down in my basement and play for 400 or 500 people. Like, you know, that's okay.
So
they gotta give me, you know, they gotta encourage me to leave the house now, because
they gotta raise the bar now, because before the DJs were the promoter, we had to really do it, but now you have promoters out there now doing it. So yeah, they gotta raise the bar. So Carmelo, his question was, when are you coming to DC?
Yeah. To DC, I think he means DC. Well, we've been talking about New York, because I'm talking to somebody about coming to Jersey sometime soon for something. But so I know Carmelo's from New York, living in DC now. DC, I don't know. unfortunately, Sam Burns, who was kind of the legend out there in DC,
Yeah.
great guy. We
Rip
lost,
Sam.
and
Hmm.
and I had the honor of playing in Sam's spot on 16th Street. You know, near the end. You know, probably one of his last nights. He, it was wonderful to meet him finally and get a chance to play his spot. But
Good guy.
Carmelo, nothing planned in DC. I'm working on something in Jersey where Wayne Williams and I think are coming pretty soon to Jersey, but I don't have specifics yet. And
Have you?
before we move on, only because I really love this DJ and I don't want to not mention him, my brother Ian Friday, and talking about
Oh yes,
and,
Okay.
Ian.
and,
I
and,
Okay.
love
and,
Ian.
and talking about my favorite DJs. So Ian is definitely one of them
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
He's gonna appreciate that too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mhm.
So
he's good.
Tat Tat wants to know when you coming to Jersey. You mentioned
Yeah.
it, but you have a date yet?
No, I don't have a date yet. So I think there's a new spot, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't know exactly where it stands with who's doing it. But I think in the next couple months, at least that's the talk right now that Wayne and I are going to come out there in Jersey. But I don't have any details yet.
Have you ever played in New Jersey?
New York a number of times. I'm thinking of. I'm not sure about Jersey, but I did a few times. Why am I blanking on his name? It's the Sunday night deal was at Sullivan Room for a while, and then
Okay.
somewhere else. Why am I blanking on my guy's name? But anyway, um, and Cielo I did once. Two or three other spots in New York, but maybe not Jersey proper. I don't think so.
So
Gotcha.
you probably heard me in the Sullivan Room there.
Uh, oh man, I love that room. That was
Mm-hmm.
I played there two or three times. It was such
Yeah.
a great room. Hmm.
So Mr. Drea has a question. Who are you mentoring?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. um, it's yeah. Let me say this: a lot of us older heads, in particular, are concerned about passing this music down to the next generation and
Yeah.
making sure that we do that because if we don't do that, this scene can kind of die with us.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that, and I'm sure we can talk more about the Chosen Few picnic, but one of the things we're so proud of that event is that we've had folks who've been coming there since they were in diapers almost over the last 30 years with their parents and kind of grown up with the event. So a lot of the younger people in Chicago are familiar with it, through our event and other events. I'm almost embarrassed to continue to tell this story, but as a chosen few, we've really been focused on that issue, at least talking about it. And we set up a nonprofit a few years ago with the plan and the idea of, working with kids on, DJ skills, production skills, everything that,
Mhm.
relates to music and our scene, house music, education, and history. So, the reality is we're all just so busy, and so we've kind of mapped out plans. And I think the reality is, until I hang up this law firm thing, it's probably not going to get too far beyond the idea stage. So, but we're going to get there, and we're definitely focused on that. So, I'm open to mentoring anybody and everybody. And, I've had residencies in Chicago, and I've you know, put people on constantly that are not necessarily as well known as some other people. And I think my chosen few brothers have done that. Terry had a long residency at a spot. Also, and would give folks opportunities. So, but I'm seeing, and again, as part of everything being online now, I'm seeing a lot of younger guys and ladies that seem to be into it in terms of the DJ side and doing their mix shows. And so I'm so bad. I think I'm losing my memory because
So,
I'm forgetting our young gun in Jersey.
yeah, I was
Who's
thinking of that too because
uh,
we have Jordan Pope in Maryland,
Jordan.
and
Yep,
it's
yep. And
other young
the
man.
other kid in Jersey, who's
Yeah.
not so much
So
of a kid anymore, who's
no,
probably about
neither
like
of them are. I
right,
saw
right.
Jordan and was like, "What in the world?"
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. So, do you have anyone in Chicago? Do you guys have any up and coming young person in Chicago doing their thing? I know DC has a
yeah,
young lady.
yeah.
Can't remember her
I-
name.
on the really young side, I'm not really aware of any. Yeah,
Amir. Yep.
Amir,
Thank you.
thank you, DJ baby,
Thank
Amir.
you, DJ baby.
Yeah. So DJ Amir in Jersey, who's fantastic, and
Hmm.
we've brought him to Chicago, and he's done the Chosen Few event with us. So,
Wow.
but nobody that I'm aware of, or at least that comes to mind in Chicago right now. So
Yeah, you know what's amazing? Like I say that kids, young kids, teenagers, they they found a way to really take advantage of social media. Like
yeah, for
Like
sure.
none
my
other.
my kids got more numbers than me as far as
Woo!
followers. So now,
Right.
can you imagine if you merge them into DJs
Yeah.
playing our music, whether you want to call it house music, whatever it is, playing our music to their audience because
Oh, I know.
they influence their peers so very much. It would take our music to a whole different level. It would change the demographic, and it would change the
Yeah.
image of house music. You know,
Yeah.
like we have Coney Island, which is a lifesaver for us because
Mhm.
Coney Island, obviously, it's an amusement park, so you got a younger demographic.
Sure.
So now, just passing by, they're hearing our music. I'm like, you know what? I like the dancing. It's different,
Right.
and they become new house heads,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
that's what saves us as far as like
Right.
keeping this, the audience live. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of them,
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, when they hear it, they like it. I mean, you can't not
Yeah.
like it, when you hear it. So our challenge is to create opportunities for them to hear it and be exposed to it.
And events.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I guess I should say I also mentor my daughter, who's a DJ now, but
yeah,
Yeah.
and she lives in New York, so she's only recently started DJing, but I think she has a kind of a natural talent for it, and she enjoys it, and she plays out occasionally in New York, so she's doing
mhm.
great.
So Alan, I mean, your SNL show. You want to talk about that, and then we'll get into the chosen
Yeah,
few.
yeah, sure. So, I like many other DJs, I was like going live on Facebook and was just so frustrated because they cut you off and you got to
Mhm.
restart and all that nonsense. And I finally got fed up and I started hearing about Twitch, and I had never heard of Twitch, and I think a lot of us really hadn't had much familiarity with it. It was mainly a gaming platform. But I was one of the first people. I think I started fairly early on. So I've just had my 1 year anniversary a couple months ago. So I think March or so of 2020. I said I'm going over to Twitch, uh, and I'm not even doing this like Twitch, YouTube. I'm on Twitch. That's where I'm going to be. If you want to hear me, you got to come to Twitch. And,
Mhm.
and honestly, I had no idea like if folks would follow me or what would happen when I got over there, because the disadvantage of Twitch, of course, is it's not like a social media site, so people aren't just
Right.
hanging out on Twitch that aren't there for a purpose with to hear music or do something else. So anyway, so I got over there, and I think because I got over there early and I sort of staked out Saturday night before anybody else was doing Saturday night. So that was nice. And I know you check out the show from time to time, and I
Mhm.
do like a 6 or 7 hours every Saturday night, and that wasn't my plan necessarily. Like the first time I got over there, I just started playing, and folks, you know, showed up, and I'm like, okay, well, they're having fun, and I'm having fun, and I'm not tired, so I'm just gonna keep going. And so I don't know how many hours that first night, but I see lots of my SNL family, checking in with the emotes. Thank you guys so much. So the first couple of nights, it really wasn't a plan. I just started playing like for a lot of hours because I was enjoying it and they were so then I decided that was going to be my thing. That it's all these other DJs who are going on for 2 hours or an hour or whatever. So and part of that, why I wanted to do it is, and you know this, Will, I mean, it's just frustrating as a DJ, especially us older, experienced DJs, to have a whole lot of music rolling around in our heads. I mean, when, most parties or even when we do these festivals, I mean, it's like you got an hour. And you really, there's not a lot you can do in an hour. In an hour, you got to play the hottest tracks. You got to get in there and play it and get out. And there's just not an opportunity to stretch out and cover a lot of ground and start here and go there and then come back here and
tell your story.
The way
we get robbed of the journey.
You get robbed of the journey.
You can't tell your story.
Exactly. And I decided I was going to use SNL to try to tell a story or at least take a journey every Saturday night. So it's been great. It's been successful beyond my wildest dreams in terms of the numbers that tune in, and the industry folks who show up pretty regularly is amazing. And so I thank my SNL crew. This is about them more than it's about me, but we've done something special together.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, you definitely have a loyal following. They follow you, and I do enjoy myself when I'm in your room. Sometimes we come over, we raid after our show, we hang out with you. You definitely represent high numbers. How were you able to tap into that, as far as without giving your secret ingredients, of course, but who were some of the key players that helped you with getting those numbers?
Yeah, it's hard to say, and I don't want to start naming names because I don't want to leave anybody out.
Okay,
but it was really just sort of organic growth. I'm seeing names like Sue Ellen and Tawana B. I definitely got to say they were some of the early. My girl K-Dub Seattle. Now I'm seeing everybody. Renee. That's why they want to start naming names. But there's been a solid, loyal crew from the beginning, and I think I've just been fortunate with word of mouth of people telling other people about the show, and hey, you should check this out. So, like I said, I mean, I had no idea if folks were going to follow me over there or what it was going to look like. And I just feel blessed that it's there's as much interest, and people tell their friends, and they feel like it's something that they want to tell other people to check out. So
gotcha.
It's been a blessing. Yeah.
So you were able to do this without a promotion company, just you? It's more audience driven.
Yeah, I mean, we work with Robbie, promoter, on a lot of things, and Robbie certainly promotes my show and other chosen few shows. But I don't think that explains where we are completely. Although I appreciate everything that Robbie does for sure. But I think it was more just natural, organic. Starting with a decent following. In Chicago, folks have pretty much always known about me, not as much as some other folks around the country and around the world. So that's been a blessing too, to sort of be more exposed to folks who might not have known about me at all or not know much about me, other cities and other countries. And so that's been a blessing as well from the show.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the chat room, the participants are key players. We're really getting listeners and getting traffic to the channels and everything. So much love to all the followers and listeners the moderators who really take time out to really promote these channels. You definitely have a great show there.
Well, I appreciate that, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's a crazy chat room, and it's a lot of fun, and as the DJs, we're used to like feeding off of the crowd and being able to see how people are reacting to things. So it's different, and now we use the chat room as kind of feed off the chat room and
The virtual dance floor.
the virtual dance floor. So like if y'all who are out there in the chats, I mean, just know that like we all we can do is glance at it, and when we're seeing a lot of emotes and a lot of activity, that encourages us, and that spurs us on. If we look and it's kind of stagnant, that has an impact too. So you all are really helping us do our thing.
That's what's
sure,
up.
we appreciate it. So.
I see it as we're having our own private party with our own private DJ. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Exactly.
That's what it is for me.
That's what it is.
And it gives people the power to choose. So it's like a FM dial. You can choose. You just go along. If there's different streamers on that day, you get to choose. You can always come back. So it's a
all
great
day, all night long.
Yeah,
I do.
Yep.
I know I do it. So
right. And like I said, I mean, there was nothing like this before this pandemic, where you could just choose between your favorite DJs, and we're actually playing live, and there just wasn't an opportunity to dial that up almost whenever you want it before this pandemic. So
Mahazi Bay said, when you don't see us in the chat rooms, it's because we're dancing.
That's
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
So I just want to give some love to the chat room. We got Carmelo, Tat, Mahazi Bass, Sue Ellen, Anyo Taka, Tanya. Sorry if I jacked your name up. Renee K. We have Thaisa, Renee, Seth Mel, Stacy, in the chat room, Steve Maxwell, Club, K-Dub, Seattle. And Angelica, yeah, DJ Lisa B. It's a lot of people in here. So Tawana B, Nieves, It's Negra is in the chat room. So wanna definitely get a lot of love in the room.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned DJ
Miss Shy.
DJ Lisa B, I'm mentoring you, right?
You are? You actually mentoring her?
She's I'm not gonna out you fully, Lisa, but it's time for you to get out there and let more people listen to you, because you have a real natural talent for it, and you've been doing some amazing stuff so far. So SNL crew, just get ready when DJ Lisa B is ready to really invite you all into her shows, which is coming soon, I think. So anyway, just want to shout out my girl.
Get ready for that. Got D Briz. So now, are you mentoring her on CDJs, or are you starting with the turntables?
Well, she lives in another city, so it's more just talking through things.
Okay.
Yeah. So not hands-on stuff.
I got you.
More just talking through things. But she doesn't need much help from me, so she's gonna be good. So look out, folks.
Gotcha. So before we get into the Chosen Few picnic, I just have a question, and I always wondered about this. Now, Chicago, it's kind of like has like this hip hop rivalry, because we had MC Shan, LL Cool J, who were kind of like going against each other for biting beats and biting songs and taking a song and changing it up a little bit. I noticed Chicago has that, like Armando, I think JM Silk, and I Can't Turn Around. I think there were different artists
Yeah.
for the same song. So I'm just, are you able to elaborate on that?
Yeah, but I'm gonna be careful.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that the common denominator is probably my man Farley. And
Okay.
so he was famous for kind of, so I Can't Turn Around, as you all may know. I mean, originally was an original track by Isaac Hayes, which we still play in Chicago. But so I think Steve Hurley had initially had sort of made a cover version, if you will, of that. And and the story is he and Farley were roommates at the time, and I think Farley sort of stole the record from him in the sense that Steve was going to put out "I Can't Turn Around" and Farley changed it to "Love Can't Turn Around,"
Mm-hmm.
and he beat Steve to the market, and so there's that whole story. And then there's some other Farley stories. So we love Farley, but Farley's been implicated in a number of those stories.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I don't think it's been anything that's been serious. It's like folks who are friends and all in good fun, and shit happens. But yeah, I don't think it's been really a big deal over the years.
I got you. Yeah, because then I'm starting to hear like Tyree Cooper. Now he's talking about beat biters. He's like, Armando, and they're talking about like just different songs, just being, stolen.
Yeah,
Like saying you ain't really house. So it's like little things you hear
right.
sample in these songs. It's like messages for
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know somebody had a song where they were calling Jesse a thief in the lyrics, Jesse Saunders. So yeah, you're right. I mean, now that I think about it, there is some of that. But I think folks have gotten over it for the most part.
That's what's up. Now someone mentioned would like, I guess, some elaboration on the queen of house music. So I believe that terminology comes from Chicago, right?
Shit. If they mean the queens of house, I know
the queen of house music. I would assume they might be talking about Liz Torres.
I'm not sure. I saw that post come up too, and I'm not sure who.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a recognized queen of house necessarily in Chicago, other than people forget Lolita Holloway's from Chicago.
That's right. That's right.
But that gets you back into the whole discussion of, is that disco or is that house? But for my money, I'm not putting anybody ahead of Lolita Holloway as the queen of whatever she wants to be the queen of out of Chicago. So anyway, but if they want to elaborate in the comments on who they were referring to as queen of house, we can talk about it.
My bad. Binky Dancer wanted to correct me. The queen of dance. Oh, who's the queen of dance?
Mm-hmm. Queen of dance. Am I supposed to know that, y'all? I'm not sure. I'm not sure who the queen of dance is.
All right. So now, chosen few. Like, man. How did that whole concept? Because you mentioned it was just 3 at first, and then you added more members to it.
Yeah.
It started in the 70s.
Started in the 70s. Wayne Williams started the group in I think 77. And as I mentioned, in the early years, 3 or 4 years, by 80 or so, there were 5 of us, which was Wayne, Jesse Saunders, myself, Tony Hatchett, and Andre Hatchett. And then we'll talk about the picnic, but really, 20, 30 years later, we added Terry Hunter, and then about 5 years after that, Mike Dunn. So there's 7 of us now.
7.
Yeah.
Wow.
7 strong.
7. Yeah. It's it's amazing. It's a brotherhood like I just can't explain. I mean, for some of us, it's been 40 plus years, and then with Mike and Terry, we've known them for a long, long time too. And it's about, and Wayne really is the leader of the crew in terms of asking new members to join and that sort of thing. But it's all about. It's not just about people that are great DJs. I mean, it's people that are great people, and we all get along, and there's a brotherhood and a love for each other and support of each other. So, I'm sure you see us all on each other's live streams, and we're all supporting each other and want to see each other do well. Um,
I said that, like, just looking outside in, it seems that you all are very tight. I mean, I can imagine like sometimes internally might have some differences. We all do, but I feel like you all create that, just that presence that you all are brothers in this, which is hard sometimes. It happens, but it's always something that tries to break the group or the band up. You know what I'm saying? But somehow you stood together all these years.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, some of us it's been over 40 years, and you don't see any, or very rare to see a group, whether it's a singing group or whatever, that stays intact. Nobody goes only solo, breaks up the group and all that. So, um, and in fact, I'm hard pressed to think of any real differences or arguments, or over the years. It's just been sort of a magic relationship, and we all do our things individually as well, but come back together to do things as a crew, and support what all of us are doing. So
It is, I'm sorry, Will, amazing to see at the Chosen Few picnic so many thousands of people, and to be up front and to see this well-oiled wheel just in motion. I'm sure it can't be easy, but I go from all the way in the front to the back, and it is nothing but absolute love flowing. People are like eating together and dancing together, and it's amazing.
That's like a Woodstock thing.
It is.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
that's a
it
good
is.
depiction, Will.
That's what we call it, the Woodstock
Yeah.
of house. And so I'll go through the origins and tell you sort of how we got there, and
All right.
it's just a pretty amazing story. So anyway, I think 1990 or so, some of us had moved to different cities, and Jesse was in LA and Tony was in Houston. And so we weren't really doing things as a crew anymore, but a lot of people would say, when are you guys going to play together again? And when are you going to do something? And I think the first year we had a party, and it was around Christmas time. And, because we always try to pick holidays when everybody was back in Chicago, and so it was like stupid below zero, and we had this party, and like nobody's gonna come out, and the night started that way, like nobody was gonna come out, and then all of a sudden, like hundreds of people. So we had this reunion party that was like off the hook, and then so we were like, man, we got to do something more regularly, but winter in Chicago is not the move. So we're like, okay, we got
All right, it gets cold out there.
right.
It is great. It
It's
is
not the
great.
move. Yeah. So we were like, we got to do something more regularly, but it ain't gonna be in December. So we came up with the idea, and actually the Hatchet family, Tony and Andre's family, did this family reunion thing in the park behind the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago on 4th of July weekend. So we started, like, we sort of globbed on to the Hatchet family picnic, but we had our first picnic in 90. And I would say the first few years. So, the idea was, hey, let's get everybody from the early house music days and folks who used to come to our parties back in the day, and we'll do this picnic. And the first few years was literally, maybe 25, 30 people came out the first year, and then it was maybe 60 or 70. And we're grilling and we're eating and throwing the football around and playing softball. And so, like, the first 5 or so years, like, we DJ, but it really wasn't the focus of it. Music was kind of just the backdrop, and it's just sort of a family reunion. And again, totally organically, by word of mouth, it just every year, like, 75 people became 200, and 200 became 500, and 500 became 1,000, and 1,000 became 5,000, and it just kept growing, growing, growing. So one of the challenges we had as it started to get bigger is, we were basically paying for everything out of our own pockets. I mean, it was a free event, um, there were a few of us who were paying for more of it than others, but I'm gonna leave it at that. But in any event, so it was manageable, for when it was smaller, but once you got a couple thousand people out there, you got to have some security, and you got to have bathrooms, and you got to have it, and so anyway, it got to a point in the 2000s, and let me just back up, just mention one sort of magic year as we were growing, what we call like the monsoon year. So I think it was maybe 2002 or 2003. So, and we've had amazing weather on Chosen Few picnic weekends. It's just like, if you ask Wayne, it's all, God ordaining this event. I mean, literally in 30 years, we have almost had zero rain, and you get a lot of rain in Chicago around those days. But it's like some years it'll rain like 7 days in a row right up to the event, no rain, and then start raining again. I mean, it's that crazy. But anyway, while we were growing in the early 2000s, so we had one year where it just rained like crazy, and we covered up the turntables and the booth, and we covered up the speakers, and we're thinking, okay, are we going to just pack this up and go home? And there were just like hundreds of people out there dancing, and it was like a monsoon rain, and nobody left.
Dancing in the rain. That's the best.
That was one of those moments where we like looked at each other and were like, wow, this is a thing.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it kept growing and growing, and eventually we outgrew that space. After so many years, we then moved the next year to what we thought was the biggest space in the world, and we thought we'd never have to move again, and that lasted a grand total of 1 year. People were like, that space was too small. So one of the big shifts was we eventually did have to start charging for the event, because we came to like a fork in the road where, we really had two choices. Like, we can either say it's a wrap, this was fun, we did it for 10 years or 15 years, and, but it's kind of outgrown our ability to do that. Or option two was like to figure out how you put on what we think is a world-class music festival, and how you do that, and what that costs, and everything that's involved in that. And unfortunately, we took door number two. To this day, there's people in Chicago who won't come because Chosen Few Picnic is apparently supposed to be free at all times, and they can't wrap their mind around, despite the fact that they're getting 12 hours of great DJs, live performances, and so anyway, so it really has just grown that way organically, and I think that the magic of it is it's two things. I mean, it's house music and our culture. I mean, you all know. I mean, it's a culture of love and togetherness, and it sounds corny, but it's all those things that I would say hip hop ain't necessarily, but I'm not gonna go there. But so there's that. I mean, it's house people. So we've been in that park for 29 years. The last 10 years of which being 30 or 40,000 people on the south side of Chicago packed into a park, and we have not had a single act of violence, not a single security incident of any significance. Absolutely nothing. And part of that is house people and our culture. It's just like, we just don't get out like that. That's not what we're coming out to do. And then the other part of it, I think, is because the event started as a literally as a family reunion, that we have managed to somehow keep that family reunion vibe from when we had 30 people to when we have 30,000. And
Wow.
I think that's been the magic of it over the years. So you know, it's crazy. You know, we never set out to have a, you know, 30 or 40,000 people music festival. We didn't set out to have any music festival. We just wanted to hang out with some folks from back in the day. There was no plan. There was no nothing. And like I said, I mean, we just got to a fork in the road. It's like we either gonna like figure out how to do this and keep doing it, or it's a wrap. So
It's amazing how something so natural just comes out and it flourishes. Now, Alan, which event was the takeoff event that really set the tone? And it was from that point, it was just
yeah, it's you know what? It's I would say 2006 was a turning point where it was just, and this is when we were our last year in our original location, and it was just an absolute madhouse and cars parked illegally on what's essentially essentially a highway kind of drive, and people just didn't care. They just parked, got out of their car. So we had a lot of Chicago police interaction that night in 2006.
Right.
I remember. So we knew we were going to have to move that year.
yeah.
But I would say in a space that comfortably, you know, should have had about maybe 200 people at most, we probably had about 3,000. And so it was just bananas. And then 2007 is when we moved to another space where, again, we thought, just like looking visually at the space, was like, oh my God, this is all the space in the world. We good here.
Yeah.
And then we might have got 10,000 people, and
Wow.
it was overrun. It was, you know, we were like, we got to build a bigger boat. Like, we knew that immediately. So 2008 was the first year in our present location. I call it present because we're 2 years now with no picnic, which is unfortunate. But so 2008 was the first year there, and I would say from 2008 on, 2008 was probably 10 or 12,000 people, and it's gone to 15,000, 20,000. You know, the attendance is always estimates. I mean, we don't know exactly, but we usually get estimates from like the fire department and the park district, and so, you know, it's somewhere in the 30,000 neighborhood.
Wow.
Which is absolutely insane.
Alan, Mahazi Base had a question. Her question is, what year did Obama come in, and did you play at the president's final party at the White House?
I didn't play, and I mean, we can talk about that too if people want to, but you know, I'm a good friend of the former president, so if I had the great fortune of visiting the White House quite a number of times and going to parties there, and I never DJ'd a party at the White House, although I
Because Obama dances.
Is he
He loves to
really
dance. He loves
Is
to
he
dance.
really a
He got
househead?
moves. He got moves.
You talk like you know him, Coco.
I don't know about all that.
President Obama got moves.
Michelle's a much better dancer than
She's
him.
nice too. So she got her move on.
And their daughter Sasha dances like the pants off of all the family. So she's really the one. But anyway, but no, it's been cool. Like Jazzy Jeff did one of the parties at the White House when I was there, and I think D Nice might have done one. But anyway, I think the first party I went to when they were first in office, and it was nice because both of them came up to me like separately and said, you know, we really thought about asking you to DJ, but we wanted you to like not have to work and have fun like everybody else. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So, but I think the reality was, for those kind of parties, they want somebody that's gonna play a real variety of music and hip hop and current stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, I just do what I do. So I'm not that guy. So anyway, that was cool. But and this is a great story too. So 2015 was our 25th. Was our 25th? Yeah. 25th anniversary of the picnic. And we really blew it out that year. I mean, we had, I can't even remember all the people we had. We had Louis, I think we had Joe, I think we had Evelyn Champagne King, we had Stephanie Mills, we had Corey Day. Not just Louis. We had Masters at Work, Louis and Kitty that year. So we really blew it out. So anyway, I had again, and this is crazy to be talking like this, and it sounds crazy even to me because I can't believe the whole Obama thing at all. So because I've known them forever and ever, so it's still hard to believe sometimes. But so I was at the White House about a month before our picnic, and it was really the first time that I ever talked to the president about the picnic. And he wasn't somebody that was really a house head. He's not, and he hadn't really known that scene. But I was explaining to him about the picnic and really the parts that I just mentioned to you guys about how the fact that we have all these people on the South Side is this positive, constructive event, no violence, no whatever. So that really interested him, and I asked him if he would record like an audio greeting that we could play at the picnic, where he would welcome everybody, whatever. I didn't know whether he would do it or not. So this is like a Saturday night, and I'm in DC. I think the Tuesday or Wednesday after that, I get a call from the White House. I'm at work, and they say, President Obama has a video for you. And I said, video? I said, you mean audio, right? And they said, no, he cut a video this morning. So I didn't even ask him to do a video. He took it upon himself to do a video. So he did this video. And so they sent it to me. And I had that video in my phone for about a week before the picnic. It was burning a hole in my phone. It was like I wanted to show it to everybody, but I decided
you had to hold back.
I decided even my chosen few brothers, I'm gonna make this a secret to everybody, and it'd be a secret on picnic day. I think I finally broke down. I can't remember why, but I showed it to Terry Hunter, and so I think Terry and I were the only ones that knew before. So it was a big surprise, and at the end of the night, at the picnic, everybody's thinking it's over, and then we have these big video screens, and all of a sudden, Obama comes up on the video screen, and people are freaking out, and then I think they thought it was just going to be some generic whatever, and then he starts talking about, hey, chosen few, mentions chosen few, and want to congratulate them on 25th anniversary and blah blah blah. So it was obviously, it was really, really special. Now, a lot of people kicked themselves that had gone home early that night, so they missed it. But we tried to hold it to the end and have it be a surprise. So, but that's just an example of the kind of guy he is. I mean, literally, I didn't know if he was going to even do audio, and he just said, I'm gonna cut a video totally on his own. So amazing.
You ever seen that movie series or TV series, The Oval?
Yeah. I used to like that. Yeah.
That's
man, it's
intense show about the White House.
It's amazing. Like I said, all those years, and I think I may have only gone in the Oval Office once, I think, but walking in that Oval Office is absolutely unbelievable. It's I felt like I was flying, like I was floating in there. My feet weren't even on the ground. It's just so crazy. But
so it seems like Carmelo is trying to bargain with you. He said, since you can't come to DC, can you come to Baltimore?
Yes. I like Carmelo.
Oh boy.
Good one, Carmelo.
Carmelo, I'm ready to go at the drop of a hat. You got to talk to Spin and Charisma and Pope and all my boys and
Teddy.
And Teddy, exactly. Mm-hmm. So if they would like,
he gonna get you in the neighborhood or something,
some kind of way.
I'll be able to
sooner or later.
Yeah.
So Chosen Few is a 1-day event, but there's really like a lot going on the week of Chosen Few.
Yeah,
Yeah, which I love.
yeah.
Coming
So
in early and staying late.
right. Yeah, I mean, as it got bigger and bigger, and people started coming from different cities, it's like we knew we had to make it more than just a 1-day thing. So we definitely have a Thursday night sort of kickoff party. Then there's a Friday party, and then the picnic is Saturday, and folks who aren't dead tired, there's even after party Saturday night, and then we have like a send off party on Sunday. So
That's
yeah,
that
It's
big
a
lavender thing.
marathon. Nice.
Oh my God, it is amazing. And you
A
just go on and
marathon party.
stay till Wednesday and do
Yep.
Reynolds on Tuesday.
right.
Yep.
Listen, you go home full.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, really
No,
nice.
it's we're missing it, and
Oh,
you
that's
know,
my question for you,
yeah,
Alan,
yeah,
is do you guys plan at some point when the pandemic lifts to actually celebrate your 30th anniversary?
yeah. We do, and this is gonna be the second year that we do a virtual picnic, but we're not counting that in the number. So we're waiting
Okay.
until we get back
Oh,
in the park, which
good.
hopefully is next July, and that'll be our real 30th anniversary. So hopefully
Yeah.
we'll blow it out like we did
You
the
know we're
25th
coming,
anniversary.
right?
Listen,
I
We gotta
NYC's got to
come.
do a
We
road
gotta
trip.
go. We
Got to
I
get
gotta go.
there.
That's the road trip.
NYC all
I
day coming up
I
there.
That's
I
the road
I,
trip.
I remember seeing you at the last one, Carolyn.
Yes,
Yeah,
honey.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And I
So
was ready for 30.
so
yeah.
you're even though collectively you're together, you all do separate things individually, which I think
Sure.
also is a a great thing.
Yes.
It only brings you all together even stronger because of the individual work that you all do. Now, you mentioned Wayne Williams. His name is mentioned in videos, right? In records.
Yeah. So Wayne's was for more than 20 years was like VP of A&R originally at Jive Records, and then Sony and RCA. So he lived in New York for about 20 years doing that stuff. Although he was in Chicago so much, most people didn't know he ever left Chicago and moved to New York. But so Wayne was, a big record industry person out well beyond just house music, and obviously it's a controversial topic these days, but Wayne was really the person that sort of discovered R. Kelly and signed him originally to his original label deal, and worked with him throughout his career. So for better or worse these days, he's associated with Rob, but worked with many, black, white, you name it, acts at Sony and RCA over the years. So yeah, he's not with the major label anymore, but he was doing that for years and years, and then DJing and doing Chosen Few stuff at the same time. So
That's awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
Jive Records has a great history as far as like music, from
yeah,
like Houdini,
right,
you
for
know,
sure.
right? And
Yeah,
just having
yeah,
that UK flavor with
yeah.
hip hop, and at one point Liz Torres was signed to Jive Records.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I should mention we talked a little bit about Trax Records, one of the original house music labels, and Wayne was at Trax for a while
Oh,
too.
okay.
He was A&R at Trax, so a lot of these records, Adonis and different records, Wayne had signed those acts as well. So he has quite a history. Um, he's a walking historian in a lot of respects, and Wayne's a little bit older. He's the oldest in the crew.
He
So
is?
like yeah, so like for
Okay.
example, like Wayne was going to the warehouse before any of us were. It was partly an age thing, but I think some of us, as kids and being stupid and being homophobic, it didn't ever affect me. I was just waiting to be old enough to go.
To
But
go.
there are a lot of people who wouldn't go, that were just silly and homophobic and whatever. But Wayne was always in those spots like earlier, and so he knew Frankie earlier, and a lot of the other gay clubs and gay DJs at the time. So
So
yeah,
So would it be safe to say that Wayne kind of like mentored all of you since he's been there, or?
Yeah, I don't know if mentored. I would say he's brought us all together is what I
I
would
got you.
say. Yeah.
Now, who manages all of you? Because I can imagine it's all of you together. Somebody's got to be the glue to make it stick. Is there like one manager personnel that helps with that?
I would say a few of us have, and the good thing is we all have different roles, and obviously a lot of the legal stuff is me, and some other things, but so there's 3 or 4 of us that are more active day to day and chosen few business side than ever than others, but then we have people on a promotion side. We have a publicist who does a lot of the promo stuff and publicity for us, and travel person, just about anything you can name at this point. So a lot of it is, there's a lot of moving parts around putting this picnic together, and so we've got a team, and I'll mention Leah Franklin Acox. Leah's our publicist and has been for many years, and like all of us with Chosen Few, wears more hats than just the publicist hat.
Absolutely.
But Robbie on the promotion side, historically Reggie Corner on the promotion side, and Tonka Toy, some people know as our travel person, and so we got a small but lean and mean team that makes it all work. So.
Yeah, I always say you got to have a strong team in order to make that brand do what it do. Alan, I just want to thank you. I mean, New York City, Chicago, like I said, always had that relationship, good times and bad times. I know DHP, I've seen a lot of stuff happen through that with New York City and Chicago, but we all found a way to come together, and I think this platform right here solidifies that, not only just here, but just the relationships that we had after all that and still remain, because of the controversy of house music, whatever it is, we played it. Right. We played it at the same time.
Exactly.
Right. But I just want to say, as a representative of your hometown, Chicago, I appreciate you because, 87, 88, 89, I was banging out all those jams that were coming out of Chicago, and I just couldn't get enough of it. Like literally playing it. And New York City can't front. We were playing it too, playing it hard. We had like DJ Disciple, Tony Humphries, who were killing all of the Chicago joints. Larry too, Larry Levan, but a lot of love New York City has given Chicago, and Chicago has given New York love too as well. So
absolutely, and without a doubt, and I do think this platform and this pandemic has brought us even closer together. There's just more of a chance to hear each other and talk to each other and get to know each other even better. So that's been a really nice thing. So.
That's been really, really cool to see you DJs on each other's sets. I mean, we as the group collectively, we see each other, but when we see you guys support each other, through this pandemic, this has really, really, really given you guys an opportunity to really say, man, job well done. Absolutely. Just by being there, not by saying anything, just by showing up. It's awesome.
No, it is awesome, and I'm blown away. Glancing at my chat and seeing who's popping up, and there's Jelly Bean, there's Morales, there's it makes you feel good and
being human.
And we do try to all support each other as much as we
can. I mean, it's special when your peers acknowledge your work, because you want to please your peers. You want to do good by them. You want to do the right thing. And I think that seeing that is rewarding.
Absolutely.
Just like when you come into the chat room, I'm happy. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate you, and everyone
Same with you. I
who
appreciate
do
that.
attend. You know, I gotta say your team, your group really inspires me, and I'm sure other people of New York, because again, your strong presence of this togetherness with Chosen Few really do show itself. And when you do your own separate thing, whether it's SNL or Terry Hunter
Right.
playing, you're in those rooms with them, so it's like you're there playing
Yeah.
with them, even though you're not there. And I believe that's the way it's supposed to be. You know, you should be
Absolutely.
together even when you're not on the bill.
Absolutely.
So it's
Absolutely.
really inspiring to see
Good
that,
stuff.
you know, that love, no ego. It's all about just staying humble for, you know, each other's work. And, you know, thank you
Absolutely.
for showing that.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And I love seeing you show up in the chat too. So respect. Absolutely.
Respect back.
So Carolyn, are you still performing, or what's going on with
Absolutely.
you? Okay.
Pandemic time right now, but Will and I are still doing some stuff. We're getting some
Good.
things ready, and you know,
Cool.
it's gonna go up, not down. It's gonna go
Yeah.
up.
Right.
Yeah,
Awesome. Glad to hear
I'm
it.
loving that. Yeah,
Always
never
enjoy
stop.
your stuff. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Well, one thing before we wrap, and I know we got a few more minutes, but I definitely want to mention our virtual picnic that we're planning for July
Yeah.
3rd. And I can't say too much because I don't want to give away too many surprises, but we're really gonna blow it out and do it in a more intention way than we did last year. I mean, last year we kind of were sort of blindsided by the
Right,
pandemic,
sure.
but we got some really great plans and some guests, both DJs and performers that are going to join us for the virtual. That it's going to be really nice. So July 3rd, and to your point, Carolyn, we're going to also make a weekend of it. So even though the picnic will be virtual on the 3rd, we're going to have some live events on Thursday and Friday
Nice.
and Sunday. So try to stick to the flavor of the weekend as much as we can.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
we're looking forward to that. So just folks, stay tuned for some announcements soon on the Chosen Few virtual picnic.
Awesome.
Cool.
And you have a show tomorrow night as well, right?
Yeah, tomorrow. So we've got a little Michigan City, Indiana. It's an hour and a half from Chicago, but it's kind of a little getaway. So we've got parties Saturday night, and then a day party, I think, on Sunday, and then Sunday night as well with the holiday. So it's a nice little getaway for a few days, and sounds like a lot of folks are coming, and I'm excited because even some of my SNL folks who I've never met in person and aren't even from Chicago, I've been told
Wow.
by a few that they're coming in for this weekend. So I'm really excited
Awesome.
about that, and
Awesome.
yeah, so this should be a fun weekend as well. So
All right.
Please give Leah my love.
I will, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if she's on, maybe not, but
So
absolutely I will.
so Bliss family, any last questions before we close?
Jacking. Didn't we say we were going to ask Alan about
Oh yeah.
jacking? I don't forget.
Yeah. But wait, before we get
Alan.
into the jacket,
Okay. Mhm.
so Paul Howard wants to know: did Chicago lift their restrictions for the to do person events?
Yeah, is the basic answer. We have this huge event here, Lollapalooza,
Yeah.
which the city recently announced that Lollapalooza was a go, and with
Really?
apparently with no restrictions either.
What? I'm
Which
sorry.
is no,
As
it's
huge as that.
yeah. I mean, there are like 100,000 people
Yes.
each day, and
Well, you know that.
I don't. Yeah, it's this is
Exactly.
it's all about money.
Oh, yes.
So the city makes big money off Lollapalooza.
Mhm.
So theoretically, when they announced that Lollapalooza was a go, we probably could have been a go, but we didn't have enough time to plan. I mean, it takes us months and months to do this thing,
Right.
and we weren't about to like be responsible for some big super spreader event just
That's
because
amazing.
somebody said that we could. So I think that Lala thing is going to be, oh Lord, I don't know what they're thinking really, but
Revenue.
Yeah,
That's it.
that is what they're thinking. But so anyway, but yeah, I mean, so I'm feeling more comfortable doing some smaller events, and even the thing we're doing this weekend, it's limited people, and I think folks will probably still be wearing masks and all that. But huge events like picnic, I ain't ready for that.
Yeah.
So it looks like the chat room don't want to let you go too soon. Another question that came up was Sue Ellen King, are you going live Saturday from Michigan City?
We're gonna try, Sue Ellen. I think we got to sort of see what the setup is and if we can make it work. But I think the plan is we're gonna try to go live. But I'm not positive at this point.
Okay. Most definitely looking forward to meeting everybody, eventually in person. You bring up a good point, Alan. It's like sometimes in your own city,
Right.
you don't get the opportunity to meet, certain people. So now, thank you for that question, Carmelo. So Carolyn, the question of jacking, you had a question?
So I don't even
Jack your
remember
body.
when this came up in one of our previous interviews with someone else.
Last
but we knew
week.
Alan was coming. So define jacking. Or do you want my definition?
I don't even know if I can define it, and I'm certainly not going to do it.
No, you're not.
And I don't understand where the term came from or who thought of it, but it's just sort of a dance where you're like thrusting your body, like usually it'd be like two people together, and the best way I can describe it is just kind of like thrusting your body at each other. It was considered jacking, but
you don't actually touch each other.
Yeah, you do. You do that too. but I mean, I don't think it's
keep it real now. Keep it real.
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody doing that now, or at least calling it that. Like folks aren't like in 2021, like saying we're jacking. But in 85 or 82. Yeah.
It ain't politically correct now, but
but I mean, you
once upon a time,
you could be kind of pressed up together, Absolutely.
Keep it real.
Or just feeling the vibe. That's all. A musical dance vibe.
Yes.
That was like when we had Hippie Terrales on the show, and he said he invented the grind.
The grind.
Is that jacking? So and then we had a house dancer who we wanted him to clarify, like if jacking was a dance that was affiliated with New York, but
well that's an interesting one to me, the house dancers, because like when this started, at least in Chicago, I mean, we didn't have like those dances that they do now that they call house dancing. No, nobody was doing that. I mean, I don't think there were, other than like jacking, people were just doing their own thing. It was kind of a freestyle. Yeah, like there's like sort of these steps now and all that stuff that you might see with like house dancing. Nobody was doing that when house started in Chicago, so I'm not sure where that started.
They wasn't doing it here in New York either.
Yeah.
And Chicago's like, what? I was there. I was there.
And then I'll say
Ricoh.
one more thing that's gonna blow your mind, and the difference from Chicago and New York. I've been partying in Chicago since the late 70s. I maybe recently from New York people who have come in for something, but from the late 70s, I have never in my life seen baby powder on a dance floor.
In Chicago? In Chicago, no?
Never, ever. That is a total New York thing. Or East Coast.
New York, Jersey thing. It is. It is. No, that's
never seen it, never heard of it.
Because the only people do it in Baltimore are from up top. It's from home.
Yeah. It's like
But
because
that's our culture.
it's just funny when I hear people talk about the baby powder.
Yeah.
Never in my life seen it.
So you hear that,
Now,
our New
now
York
that
family? When
one,
you do go to
look,
Chicago, you bring baby
now
powder.
that
You
one,
better
You better
Get
bring
what
your
they're
better
for,
bring your
right?
own. Listen,
now that
I
one,
get it. I get it, and it makes sense. It makes perfect
look,
sense, and I get it. But I just never. We didn't do that.
look,
Right.
now that one, I will reluctantly claim.
Yes. Yes, Rico. Mm-hmm.
Because we was baby powder
I
down.
mean, listen,
That
slide
was
on
part of
somebody
your
else's powder.
equipment.
It's so funny,
Okay.
right?
If
And,
that
and,
wasn't
It has
in
to
your
be right.
backpack, then you wouldn't have a full
right.
backpack.
And then y'all do the dance circles too, like the
And the
ciphers,
spins, yeah.
like it's Sullivan Room, like you always
Right,
like folks to get
exactly.
the circle.
Yeah.
That wasn't Chicago either. Like that's a New York thing, but
Yeah, yeah. So
That's a great.
some things we did originate, didn't we?
oh, for sure,
Mhm.
Yeah.
absolutely.
No,
A
but you
lot
know
of
what?
things.
That's a great point that you bring up because that's part of the culture, and we're assuming
Yes,
that
it
that
is a
culture
culture
goes
thing.
all
Yeah.
around the world, and it's
But it
not.
does.
Not,
Yeah,
Nope.
yeah,
not. Just like the difference between jacking and how Jersey house dancers kind of come
yeah.
into each other, and it's just a
And the
different way of
bending,
doing the
don't
same thing. It just doesn't
and the
happen.
grinding.
Come on.
So
No, but you see the grinding,
I
right?
never participated in a grind.
Sure you didn't. Sure you
Go
No, I
didn't.
do it.
didn't.
You
did.
No,
never
I
Yeah,
did
didn't.
that.
Let make it last forever. Go
Make
on, and you're
it
gonna be doing
Even
some
with that,
grinding. You're gonna be
a
doing some
little
jack in the
baby
box.
powder.
You're gonna be jack in the box with 3-piece biscuit.
Nope. Even with that, a little baby powder. Okay, a
A
little
little
baby
baby
powder,
powder.
and
Right.
just some fluid moves.
Rico, you were
So
never the
We have
grind,
time to be
you were never
bumping
the
it. No.
grinder or the grindee. That's what you think.
Look,
Ooh.
and then
Or the
on top
grinding.
of that, they was grinding in a line like a Soul Train line grind.
like it's my turn. Don't skip this line.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Soul Train line grind.
So 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 Alan, I want to make sure like the people definitely get their questions. And so Paul Howard had another
I'm
question.
Good. I'm good.
Okay, cool. He have you ever played with the late great Sam Burns?
Yes. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier too. Yeah. Only once, and it was fairly recently. Shortly before Sam passed, and yeah, I mean he was gracious and sort of gave me the peak time and his spot.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
he
Man
was
was amazing like that.
he was
Yeah.
very gracious.
Very
Giving you the rundown.
Yeah, and we had actually talked about, I think maybe it was the first inauguration, about doing something together, and I just had too much going on and couldn't do it. But I was so glad we got to do it
Yes.
while he was still here. Yeah, great guy, absolutely.
Yep. Great loss too.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Indeed.
It looks like
Wendy.
we got everything in.
Okay.
So good.
Hey, I
We made it.
was thinking 2 hours was a long time, but this flew by. I had a lot of fun.
Did.
So.
Yes.
All of our guests say
It
say
went
it. It
fast.
just goes
Very
by.
nice.
Everybody says that. Everybody says
Not
that.
in personal with Alan King. Yes.
This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys.
Thank
Got it.
you.
Bliss on the spot. We got special guest Alan King, Chicago's chosen few, SNL. Want to thank you so much for stopping by, having this discussion with us, Alan. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Pleasure, man.
Rico,
Thank you for asking.
you got it. We got Rico Scott, Coco, Sandy Paradiselady,
Thank you,
Carolyn
sir.
Victorian.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Alan.
We enjoyed
Hey,
you
kids.
guys.
Continue
Thank
blessings,
you.
Alan.
I
Continue
will-
blessings.
Thank you, Sandy. I
You're
see you in
welcome.
these Twitch streets too. So.
I know, right? Sandy is about it. That's the media lady. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget tomorrow, Bliss NYC, 12 p.m. Twitch TV. Join us. We'll be there. So yeah, thank you all for the questions that you posted in the chat room. Incredible questions. Thank you. Alan King, be safe. Keep up the great work, you and your family. Nothing but blessings, man, and much guidance with your endeavors. With everything you do, man.
Appreciate
Thanks to
you.
all of you. All right.
We'll see you in the cyber world.
Yeah, exactly. and keep sending me that hotness, Will. I appreciate it.
I got you. Got you, man. Got you. All right. We out.
Bless, brother.
Take care, ladies. All right.